with Coleman's experience where he was apparently in a cult. Can you tell me about that, please, Coleman? That's awesome.
I don't know if awesome is the word that I would use to describe the experience, but it
Yeah.
was something.
You are listening to the Why Smart Women podcast, the podcast that helps smart women work out why we repeatedly make the wrong decisions and how to make better ones. From relationships, career choices, finances, to faux fur jackets and kale smoothies. Every moment of every day, we're making decisions. Let's make them good ones. I'm your host, Annie McCubbin, and as a woman of a certain age, I've made my own share of really bad decisions. Not my husband. I don't mean him, though. I did go through some shockers to find him. And I wish this podcast had been around to save me from myself. This podcast will give you insights into the working of your own brain, which will blow your mind. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I'm recording and you are listening on this day. Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land.
So, hello, smart women, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Why Smart Women podcast. Today, I'm very excited to be interviewing Coleman Watts, who was fascinatingly a conspiracy theorist who has now turned his back on the dark side and is a science communicator. And his wonderful partner, Daniela, is that correct, Daniela or Danielle?
You know, it's actually Danielle, but I think Daniela sounds more romantic, so
It
you can
does.
call me that too.
Okay, I will. I'll call you Daniela. Just between you and me, that'll be our new name for you. Okay. And so because they have such a cornucopia of fascinating experiences behind them, I've just exacted a promise that they're going to come back again and talk about more things. So today, here in Australia, on the northern beaches of Sydney, New South Wales, we had a resounding success where our progressive party has retained power here. So we have said no to Trumpism, which we're absolutely thrilled about. And so I think today's a good day to talk about critical thinking, how we discern what is real, what is not real, and how we try and get our thinking back online. So I think I'd like to start with Coleman's experience where he was apparently in a cult. Can you tell me about that, please, Coleman? That's awesome.
I don't know if awesome is the word that I would use to describe the experience, but it
Yeah,
was something. It was
yeah.
something. It was mind-blowing. Yeah, and I mean, I can just give a little bit of my background, which is that I grew up in a very welcoming, very inclusive, very progressive kind of community. Um, went to a church that was very open-ended. They were called Universalist Quakers and had, very accepting of anyone. You could be a Buddhist and be a Universalist Quaker. You could be probably an atheist and still be a Universalist Quaker. Anybody could go.
Can
And
I just ask you, because I've never heard of a Universalist Quaker church. Is this something that's a Carolina thing? What is this? I've never heard of it. Is it like the Quakers? Is it
it's the Quakers. Yeah, it's the Quakers that you would find in Australia.
right? Okay, yeah, right. Okay,
They're Yeah, very very similar. I've been to a Quaker meeting in Australia and very, very similar.
okay.
And so, yeah, absolutely. So the the values that I grew up with are actually quite similar to the values that I have now, except that when I was growing up, the critical thinking piece wasn't so prominent. And so this being accepting of all people and accepting of all ideas meant that it wasn't about the scientific method, it was about just being inclusive, right? This is
Got it.
this is boiling it down, leaving out a lot of details, but
Good, good.
that's the general idea.
Yeah, okay,
And
good.
so and so um, when I struck my way out into the world, I found all kinds of people to commiserate with about various topics, and some of them were very into wellness and organic food and herbs, and all of that was very very much in line with the way that I've been raised. Some of them were into spiritualism. Some of them had a flair for conspiracy theories and would tell me that 9/11 was an inside job.
Sure.
And these were people that were all within my community, and I had no reason to doubt or question what they were saying. And so it all kind of fell into this mishmash of some things being true, some things being false, but it all melded together in my brain. And so when I
And how old
um
were you at this time when you were experiencing this sort of
oh, this was when I was
plethora?
in my 20s. This
Uh-huh.
was when I was in my 20s and early 30s. And then when I was in my early 30s, some of those people who were very much into conspiracy theories sort of became front and center in my life, just because of my personal relationships and how that was going, and a long story that I won't bore you with. But the point is that as my social circles started to include more of these people, they started to lean more to the right and more towards the conspiracy theories that were leading up to Donald Trump's presidency in almost 8 years ago, or 10 years
Yeah,
ago,
yeah.
or however long it
Uh-huh.
was. And
Right.
so and so I found myself getting sucked into that world and getting sucked into going down that path that I never thought that I would. And
So can you
it
just
was,
what
yeah.
were some of those theories that you're talking about, like specifically that you were getting sucked into?
Well, so I would say that the what I was falling into was sort of a proto QAnon. It
Oh,
was
got it.
before
Yeah.
it was like Pizzagate and Gamergate, but before it became QAnon. I got out before that happened.
It's funny because we are so sort of enmeshed in this environment. We talk about things and then I sometimes forget that not everybody knows what we're talking about. So QAnon, um, it was very, very relevant, wasn't it, in the lead up to Trump? Yes?
Really took a hold after he was elected. I think it was in the proto phases, which is what I got into before he was elected. But after he was elected, it sort of blew up on the intellectual dark web and started going mainstream. You had candidates like Marjorie Taylor Greene running for Congress who had embraced QAnon, and and at that point, my social circles had shifted again for personal reasons, and I was starting to feel more critical of it all. But one of the things that I think is interesting is that during that time, the the people who were pushing hard for conspiracy theories, especially right-leaning conspiracy theories, were always saying that they were about facts and logic and reason and evidence.
They
That
still
was their,
do. They still do, right?
facts don't care about your feelings was one of the big
Yeah, yeah.
taglines of
Yeah,
that
yeah.
of that group. And so I actually took that literally and thought,
Sure.
oh, okay, well, I'll start doing, I'll start delving into the facts. I'll start doing critical thinking. And when I started turning that on the things that I'd been told in that space, I was like, oh, wow, this is actually bullshit. A lot of it is, even though I had started off by looking at other things. It was a process of letting go of so many beliefs, things that I learned from when I was very young.
Like
Things
what?
about alternative, I was going to a chiropractor,
Sure.
um, or taking herbal supplements, or believing in, uh, you know, believing that there was this conspiracy theory around 9/11. And I just time after time, or believing in psychic gurus. I kept on coming in and revisiting that stuff, and finally came to the point where it was almost a nihilistic experience of like, wow, there's so much out there that's bullshit. What can I believe? And that is
Uh-huh.
where I started to find people who were writing and vlogging about scientific skepticism, and came across like James Randi videos on
Yep, yep, yep.
YouTube.
Yep,
And I
yep.
was like, oh, there is a way to figure out what is real and what's not. It's not just everything is bullshit. It's just that some things are, and you have to have a rubric. And started to learn more about the scientific method, which of course I learned about in school, but wasn't applying to my personal life. And so
It's interesting, yeah. I think the
that was a
thing about,
transformative experience.
yeah, often when I say to people that I'm a member of the Australian Skeptics, and I present at their conferences, and they say to me, what is skepticism? And then I say, well, it's sort of like the scientific method. And then they sort of somehow conflate it with cynicism, or
Right.
do you just all sit around being cynical? Yeah, trying to explain the importance of skepticism is very, very difficult, and how to apply it, I think, and critical thinking. And here in Australia, there is still this, we call them cookers over here, and I don't know what you call them over there, but they're conspiracy theorists. And there's still a lot of them, and they're still banging on about COVID, that it was a
Right.
conspiracy. Yeah. And they're still, and chemtrails, they love chemtrails, that,
Yes.
and did I hear that there's a couple of states in America that are talking about banning them or something? Did I hear that? John Guy posted something.
I heard that in the news too.
Oh,
It's crazy how far the Overton window has been pushed by this administration, and I think by disinformation campaigns by large actors like Russia, and being these fringe theories, things that I was hearing about, back in 2015, that nobody else, like it was like it was in a secret club, being in the intellectual dark web that I was back then. Now I'm hearing about it from the president. Now I'm hearing about
right.
it from
Right.
Elon Musk. Elon Musk says that Western civilization, the Achilles heel is empathy, right? I was hearing about that back when I was in the intellectual dark web. So I know exactly what he's talking about, but to see it pop into the mainstream, wow, wow.
And what do you put that? Because I see it too. I see these cyclical notions, right? I keep seeing people going on Facebook talking about, this is a reawakening time. This is a major time of sort of spiritual reawakening and a resurgence of consciousness. And this extraordinary time in history. I'm like, have you read a history book? Have you noticed that actually we've been through things before? It's this idea that this is special and that we are
Right.
special. And I just wonder how come these notions, it's like they die for a little bit and then there's a resurgence. What do you reckon that's down to? What do you reckon?
I don't think it's the ideas. I think it's the influencers. I don't think that ideas don't have legs. They don't have a voice.
Yeah.
It's the people pushing the ideas, and people pushing the ideas for their own gain, because these are simple concepts. That's easy stuff. An idiot YouTuber can understand it, so they just latch onto the idea and push it to their audience to get get clicks and views for themselves, or it happens to fall into something that's beneficial for a political party to believe in because it helps their narrative.
And I
I guess
guess,
that was a cynical answer, but I tried.
no, but no, no, no,
But
no, no, I like it. It's true. An idea doesn't have legs. It's the people behind it. And I guess for someone like RFK, because you now have this terrible situation, and it's about to happen to us, where measles, has a resurgence, right? And I guess for RFK, he's pushing it because he's got supplements. Is that right? And Joe McCullough and that whole thing. Oh God, is that right? That they're
I
selling
know that
products?
Joe Mercola has lots of things to sell. RFK, from what I've researched about him, I did a video on him a few months back, and he seems to be a believer, at least in the sense that his own children have severe allergies, and he blames them on vaccines. He believes that his children were vaccine injured, so it's personal for him. He believes this stuff.
Right. Okay. Okay. Can I
And
just, sorry, you go. You go.
yeah, and just to talk about this large global trend that you were talking about, it's funny because here I am going the other way. I've spent the last 10 years going away from these fringe theories, which are now becoming more and more mainstream.
Yes, and it's
And
bad timing.
right, right. I'm not going to get rich doing what I'm doing,
You're
but
really not. Yeah.
but Danielle and I have done this together, and she's here too, and I want to let her tell
I
her
was
story
about to
as well,
say,
because
yeah, I'd like to know your story as well, because I, here in Australia, we trying to get these counter narratives out is very difficult for us. There's actually not that many skeptics in Australia. Australia's skeptics are quite a small organization, so I'm very, very keen to hear your story as well. Please tell me.
Sure. Yeah, and I'll try to tie it to how it has to do with critical thinking since that's the topic of your show.
Yeah.
But I was raised in a very different type of environment than Coleman. Christian Lutheran church, not quite as strict as Catholic, but just maybe a step down from Catholics. And I went to a Christian preschool. I went to Sunday school pretty much every Sunday until I was a teenager. I went to vacation Bible school every single summer, and I went through a 2-year period called catechism just to become a member of the church when I was a preteen, which involved weekly classes and 26 church sermons that I had to summarize a year. And being an acolyte, I had to do a lot of volunteer work within the church just to become a member. So,
can I just ask about that within
Sure,
being an
go ahead.
acolyte? Did you have to proselytize as well? Was that like part of that proselytizing of, yeah?
No, fortunately, I didn't have to do that. No.
Okay.
But no, but the point of me telling you all this is that from as young of an age as I can remember, there was no critical thinking going on. I was already being told what to believe, and it was, of course, all very fear-based. You were always worried about whether or not you're going to get into heaven and whether or not your soul's going to be saved, and having to do communion in church at least once a month and repenting. And so it wasn't a very far leap for me to jump from being raised in an environment where I was being told how to think into the new age, I guess, world, you could say, because new age is not so different from Christian beliefs.
Agree.
It's just a happier version of it. You don't
Agree.
have to worry about going to hell anymore. There's no
Yeah.
such thing as hell.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
now there's a benevolent God who's not spying on you all the time.
Called the
who's not
universe,
telling-
right?
Yes,
Is-
yes, the
yeah, the
universe or
right.
source. And, they're not telling you that, they're not looking at how sexual you're being, and you don't have to monitor your thoughts.
Yeah.
So
Hang on, how did you
Yeah.
make that leap from this
Sure.
very sort of ordered Christian environment into the more sort of free thinking new age? How did you do that?
Yeah, so I really, even as a child, I never paid attention to what they were teaching me in
Good
Sunday
girl.
school. The Bible stories were very disturbing, or they were just quite boring. And as a young girl, I just wasn't interested in listening to them. And I always just felt like I didn't fit in within the community. I never really made any close friends within the community. And it wasn't the type of community where they were going to shun you, if you left the church or anything like that. So I didn't have any of those types of social pressures. But I did, from a young preteen age, started to just wonder, like, what am I doing here? What's my purpose for being on this earth? And I just didn't feel like Christianity was giving me those answers. And so when I was 14, I was at a library, and there was a Sylvia Browne book sitting out on the shelf. She was a psychic at the time who pretended that she could communicate with one of her spirit guides,
Sure,
and the
sure.
spirit guide told her all
Yeah.
about what she called it the other side. It's just another word for heaven. All about what the other side is like, and
course.
all about how you've lived many lives and have had past lives, and sometimes the
Sure.
trauma from your past lives interferes with
Yeah.
your current life.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden there was new ways to think, a new purpose to be had through learning about all these different ideas. And of course, it wasn't fear-based anymore. I was free to believe, whatever I wanted to.
But would you say in a
and-
way that you sort of transposed that faith or belief in something into another context? So there was still
Yes.
something, but it was just more palatable. Is that right?
Yes, for sure. For sure. That's exactly what happened. There still wasn't a whole lot of critical thinking about what was going on.
Sure.
And, I was still young. Your brain doesn't fully develop until you're 25. And so without being taught critical thinking, I was just kind of floating from one
Yep.
belief system to another belief system.
Sure.
And of course, the more I got to learn about the new age, the more sucked in I got. And I started seeking out communities and going to holistic fairs, community fairs, and falling deep down into
Well, it's a
all
community, right? Don't you think? It's like,
yes,
because
definitely.
I used to be involved in the personal growth industry before. It's sort of similar. And
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap.
Yeah, right. Just when you use the word source, just like, oh,
Yes.
she was, oh.
Yeah.
And it's such an identity, don't you think? It's
Oh,
like somewhere you can
definitely,
go,
yes.
that is who I am, that's what I believe. And again, back to Coleman's with the whole QAnon thing, it's like you feel a bit special. It's like and they don't.
Yeah, some of the gurus whose meetings I ended up with when I was in that world would kind of refer to you as somebody who had been awakened.
Oh God, it's horrible.
Yeah, or that you were
God.
vibrating at a higher frequency than other people.
Yeah. That's still out there, right? All that
Oh, yes,
vibrating at a higher
definitely.
frequency. It's all over Instagram. And Gabby Bernstein.
Absolutely.
Oh man, Gabby
Yeah,
Bernstein. Do you
she's
know
part of
her?
that.
I write
Yes,
a
I
lot
do.
about Gabby Bernstein. She's over here in Australia at the moment, spreading her nonsense, talking about creating whatever you want. And apparently what we want is to fill Gabby Bernstein's pockets with our money because it's not going to work for any of her acolytes, right? We're just pausing for a minute to hear a word from our sponsor.
The Why Smart Women podcast is brought to you by Coup, a boutique training, coaching and media production company. A coup, spelt C-O-U-P, is a decisive act of leadership, and decisive leadership requires critical thinking. So well done you for investing time to think about your thinking. If your leadership or relationships would benefit from some grounded and creative support, if you want team training or a conference presentation, reach out for a confidential one-on-one conversation using the link in the description.
Anyway,
Or
do
to
go
coup
on.
Yeah.
dot co.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah. So, yeah, I fell really deep down into these beliefs. I mean, I was learning how to do Reiki and having all my crystals so I could do crystal healing and having my aura photographed and getting deep down into the law of attraction
Oh,
and,
law of attraction.
monitoring my thoughts so that I could
right,
manifest all the good things I wanted in
Yeah.
my life and,
Yeah.
taking all the herbs and supplements and shunning pharmaceutical medicine. And,
Oh,
like
you
you
did
said,
the whole
self-help is,
thing. You were
oh,
awesome.
yeah.
You landed right in it,
Yes.
right? Right. Were you not
Oh,
vaccinating
yes.
as well? No vax? Were you anti-vax?
Uh,
That was me.
Oh,
I
you've got that one. Well done, Coleman.
Yeah, I got that one.
Okay.
I can fill your bingo card. I was also chasing UFOs, believed in
Oh,
chemtrails. All of
you
it,
had
yes.
chemtrails? Is that
I
right? You were
well,
in the chemtrails.
I don't know if I would say that I was into it, but I believed it because other people in my community believed it.
It's okay. They're legislating. They can't do it anymore. It's all fine.
Right.
For anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about here, the vapor that you see behind a plane as it flies through the sky, and that vapor is actually called, what's it called? The vapor? Do either of you know?
It's a contrail.
Contrail. So this contrail that comes behind.
It's a trail of condensation.
Right. Thank you. So what the cookers, what the conspiracy theorists think, and they're very keen on it, and they talk about it a lot, is that the government, or in Australia, the government is, and the pilots, the government and the pilots are conspiring, and they fly through the air, and they are sending, is it poison from the chemtrails? Is that right? That's poisonous.
Take your pick. It could be poison. It could be a compound to alter the atmosphere. It could be a
alter the
mind
atmosphere.
control substance.
Mind control.
It could be
Yeah.
something to do with with plants. I don't know.
Yeah, it's something.
They
It's
can't
bad.
agree
It's bad
on
though.
any of it. But most of them can agree that if you just like spritz yourself with some apple cider vinegar, that will negate the
Yeah.
effects of it.
Yeah. Just put a little, apparently you can soak a tea towel in apple cider vinegar and stick it on your head. Anyway, do go on. So you're down there, you're having supplements, Daniela. You're having supplements, right? You're believing, you've got crystals,
Oh, yes.
you're
Yeah.
manifesting through your thoughts.
Manifesting,
Yep.
tarot cards. I
Oh,
mean,
tarot, got it. Yep.
seeing psychics, doing the whole self-help route, listening to podcasts
Yeah, good.
about, self-help and self-growth, and not actually doing any self-help
Sure.
at all.
Yeah. And what happened? I'm interested in the extrication from these things because I do wonder if there is a part of our psyche that is predisposed to critical thinking. If some of us are just, I don't know, it's like I've seen people climb out of it and I've seen people not climb out of it. And it really super fascinates me is what is it that clicks in someone's brain where it's like, okay, they climbed out. How did you do it? Both
Can
of
I
you.
try this one?
Please,
Or do you
Coleman,
want to
please.
answer?
I can go first.
You go
You
ahead.
go, Daniela.
I'm going to go first.
Go.
So I think there was multiple factors that helped me come out of this. Some of them were my own personal observations. Some of them was lack of a social cost for me to leave. And
What do you,
I think
don't know
another,
what do you mean by that?
yeah, I'll go ahead. Yeah. So
Social
one of the
cost?
first things that I know, so I held these beliefs for about 14 years. It was a long
Oof.
time. And during that time, as I said, I was trying to do self-help. So, I just was dealing with some mental health issues like anxiety. And I kept thinking that the more I tried all these self-help modalities in the new age, that I was going to heal myself and I'd never feel anxiety ever again. Of course, I didn't know the word for it at the time because I was young and wasn't going to the doctor because you didn't do that when you were in the
No,
new age.
pharmaceuticals, don't go near them. Yep.
No.
Yeah.
And so oddly enough, I started seeing a really great brain-based therapist in my late 20s who taught me what goes on in the brain when you have anxiety and
Yeah.
gave me some practical tools.
Oh no.
And yeah, and I got better. And I was starting to look at that going,
Mm.
oh, these 14 years of doing Reiki shares and crystal healings, this didn't really help me. But talking to somebody who believed in science did, so that's interesting.
Right.
Also, at the time, I picked up myself and I moved to a different state about 700 miles away from the area I grew up in. So I had kind of already left the entire New Age community behind on my own at that time. And I was trying to rebuild another one at when I moved, but I was also kind of having some doubts about what I was believing.
So do you think
And
it was the fact that, I mean, I'm just wondering if extricating yourself from an environment where you were being constantly, where the beliefs were being reinforced, so you were getting confirmation bias, right? And then you
Definitely.
move away from that environment. On top of, you found a modality that actually helped you genuinely. So maybe it's the combination, and there must be just something else in your brain that allows you, because it's hard to leave these things, right? It's
Yeah,
hard to
there
leave them
was
behind.
there was two other things I would say that was helpful. So at the time, I was studying grief. I was trying to learn how to be a grief counselor. And the practitioner actually had me read a book it was about spiritual bypassing. And I had never heard of that term before.
That was the title of the book, right?
I don't remember if that was the title, but it had spiritual maybe it was.
I think so.
And in the book, it was a book about critical thinking about the law of attraction. It's basically what it was.
Oh my
It was
God.
just kind of talking
I want
about
that
how,
book.
if you want to be effective and helpful and help people with their mental health, then you cannot, a lot, if you're not familiar with the law of attraction, it can get really extreme the way it's used. The way it's used can be if somebody's grieving, let's say, over a death of somebody else, and you're like, no, you're not allowed to have any negative thoughts. So it's a way of disenfranchisement, of just disenfranchisement, when somebody is legitimately feeling something that they need help processing and shouldn't be pushing away. And you're saying, no, 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 negative thoughts are harmful, or we're not going to think that, we're not going to believe that. So that's what the book was about. And it just really got me thinking about the law of attraction. And then right after that, Coleman and I met.
And where did you meet?
Oh, the way people do in modern times on the internet.
Stop it. Is that true?
Yes.
And how long
Yes.
ago? How long ago?
That was 8 years now.
Because we don't do video, we only do audio. I'm just going to tell my listeners, you're both very attractive people.
Thank you.
I'm glad
Especially
you're together.
Danielle.
And I'm very glad you're together. And now so by the time you met and you had extricated yourself from your sort of new age milieu, and then Coleman was also out.
Well, no, actually, this gets into what I was going to say, which is that neither one of us was fully out at this time that we met.
We were both questioning, but not.
We were not out. So Danielle and I went on some dates. We really liked each other. We started getting to know each other.
You're both
and then
adorable.
we started and then we started getting to find out about the beliefs that each other had. And I think in the back of our mind, I mean, we really liked each other. We wanted to stay together, but some of these beliefs were really weird. And so
that went both ways.
Exactly. And so Danielle, I think, I was still a believer in some aspects of this, what I would call the red pill, or, believing in.
Explain the red pill.
Okay. All right. Well, it's, it's this sort of proto QAnon or
when you say proto,
I'm
sorry, I've got to take you back. You keep saying proto. I only know QAnon. Okay, let's go right back. So there's proto, there's QAnon. Can you just explain the inception of Proton and then the inception of QAnon, please?
Well, when I say proto, I mean QAnon is a mishmash of a bunch of different conspiracy theories all jammed together. And so when I say proto QAnon, I'm talking about those conspiracy theories as they were sort of congealing and glomming into people's consciousnesses, but hadn't fully coalesced into QAnon yet.
Got it.
So you had Pizzagate, which was a thing, and there was a conspiracy theory.
Explain Pizzagate for the people that don't know.
People believed that Hillary Clinton was running a secret cabal inside the basement of a pizza parlor.
Yeah, I think it was either a.
I'm not going to say the words because you might get your content might get flagged, but it was some bad stuff that was supposedly happening in the basement of this pizza parlor.
I know. And then somebody went there, right, and tried to release the children, and then
tried to go to the basement, and there was no basement. Exactly. So that's the sort of thing. And then I'm sure you heard about the Christchurch shooter that was also happening around that same time. Yeah. And so these were all. And then you had the rally in Charlottesville, Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, where the men were marching with torches, and so all of these things were before QAnon became QAnon, but they were all part of the ethos. They were all part of what was sort of floating around on the internet that eventually got harnessed into this more unified movement that I would say has now morphed into just what you'd call MAGA. But...
Yeah, MAGA. So it's now sort of the dominant thinking in the currently the most powerful man in the world is enmeshed in this thinking, correct?
Right, exactly. And so I was still enmeshed in some of that thinking, not all of it. I was questioning some of it, but I was questioning a lot of things. And some of the first things that I was questioning was things that Danielle still believed in, and she, on the other hand, was seeing some of my eccentric beliefs, and she knew that was bullshit, but she was too polite to tell me that directly. And so we sort of went into this sort of gentle back and forth of helping each other think about these things and asking
what the
questions.
Fuck? Right.
It was more gentle than that, but yes. We did.
The actual,
we talked through these things and sort of helped each other, and we would find videos like I was because what I was involved in was very cult-like. I was looking up cults, and I was finding people who were writing books about it, like Dr. Stephen Hassan,
Yep, yep.
and I found a random video on YouTube that was about a guy who had almost joined a cult, and I said, "Hey, Danielle, look at this with me." And it turned out that it was actually about Young Living essential oils, and she said, "Oh, I know all about that."
What is Young Living essential oils? I don't know about this. What is it?
Oh, yeah. So you're familiar with essential oils?
Oh, yeah. They can heal
Okay.
everything, right? You don't need any
Yes.
medicine. Just
Right.
have an essential oil and a crystal. Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
Young
So
Living essential oils?
Young Living is a company that, of course, touts that they're the only essential oil company that is pure. You know, every other company makes perfume oils, and you can't
Yeah,
ingest them into
shocking.
your body.
No.
And Young Living
Yeah.
will actually says that you can ingest their product into
Well, I
into
can
your
drink
body.
it. I
Yeah,
can drink
you can
it.
put it in your water, or you can put
I
it in a
want to.
capsule.
Mm.
I
So
don't recommend it.
No.
no, no, and they
Okay.
make some pretty extravagant medical claims
Do
for what their
they?
oils
That's,
can do.
you know what
Yeah.
I love is
And
that,
they've
you
been
go.
accused of being a pyramid scheme and a cult.
Oh, amazing. That's my other. See, you've really hit every single. You have filled in my bingo card because MLMs, multi-level marketing, is one of my other absolute fave topics, and they always are, right? You can buy drink bottles now that are embedded with crystals, so that when you put your water into it, every time you put your water in, you're healing yourself, which is awesome. So you never ever have to go to the doctor ever again. Just have it sit in
Right.
your crystal encrusted drink bottle.
Right. And charged water or water memory was one of the early things that I
Oh
was
yeah, I
introduced
remember
to
it.
many, many years ago. I
Yeah.
was, probably around the year 2000, I came across, this book about water memory by a Japanese man who had
Yes.
taken photographs of water crystals or
Yeah.
ice crystals that had been frozen, and it was only many, many years later when I was having some of these conversations with Danielle and
Yeah.
and looking up some of the stuff online, I was like, hold on, that was one of the things that I actually believed. I didn't. Again, these things weren't things that I went around picketing about. They were just they'd entered my brain, and my brain didn't say, "Wait a minute, that's probably bullshit." My brain just said, "Okay, that's an interesting factoid to file away. Got it. Water has a memory. I'll save that for
Yeah.
later." And
And
so,
one of the things we talk about a lot on this podcast in terms of critical thinking and our belief systems is that so many of these the providers and the purveyors of these products, they've got such certainty when they talk. They're so certain, and they've the timbre of their voice and the cadence of the voice when they speak is it just gets into our brain because we go, yeah, well, they're certain. Which if you go to the doctor, they might not be certain because they're actually genuinely looking to see what's wrong with you, as opposed to saying whatever it is, whatever ails you, we can fix it with this one bit of, essential oil. So I think that
well,
certainty piece is so important, don't you?
well, I'm sure you know this, but it blew my mind when I learned that the word con in con artist is an abbreviation for the word confidence.
Yes. Yep. Yep. Yeah, I know. Amazing, right? I know. I've got to tell you something funny about how the moment that I went, hang on a minute here. I was on a personal development course, and I walked into the course room, we're just outside the course room, and the pipe had blown the floor above, and water was gushing from this pipe. And the all the people on the course were all standing around it, and the teacher was there, and I said, "Oh, what's going on?" And she said, "Oh, this is the unexpressed tears of the course, of the people in this course room, this leak." And I was like,
Really?
"Oh, okay." Has anybody called a plumber, or we're just going to stand here? And that for me, there's a moment I went, just hang on a minute. This does not sound valid. And it was that when I looked around the room, everybody was like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. This is the unexpressed tears of the course. And so what you're saying about yourselves, though, there wasn't a moment, there was more a series of moments along the way. that caused
Yeah.
your loss of belief. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a process of years. I would call it deconstruction over a period of years because it started out for me as kind of like, okay, I'm going to research Sylvia Browne, for instance, the very first person that whose books I ever read, and found out that, she was a fraud. She made a lot of false predictions that
Wow.
that
Amazing.
either never came true, or
Yeah.
I think she had gone on a TV show and told a mother that a missing child was dead, and that child ended up turning up alive some years later. So, okay, at that point in time, I was like, okay, she has no credibility. I can't believe anything in these books that I read. Who else? And I slowly started going through every author of every book I had ever read, or looking at modalities that I believed in, like Reiki, for instance, and being like, is there actually any evidence to back any of this up? And after doing that for a while, my mind shifted from what else is fraudulent to, is it all fraudulent? What can I actually believe? And that's when I started to realize that you need evidence. You need critical thinking. You
Yeah.
need evidence before you take these things in and
Yeah.
turn them into beliefs. And when you've gone through something like this, you really don't want to be duped ever again. So critical thinking becomes really important.
And would you say that the process was, I don't want to use the word grief, but was there any sense of loss? Was it painful for both of you to have to let go of these bolstering sort of belief systems? Was it painful?
For me, it absolutely was.
Right.
It
Tell me
absolutely
about
was.
that.
Because I kind of had formed a sense of purpose through the New Age beliefs that I held, specifically about what my purpose on Earth was and where I was going afterwards. And all of a sudden that was gone. Also, there was a sense of comfort that was no longer there. I used to believe in
Yeah.
spiritual guides and angels,
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
surrounded,
Yeah.
having all this guidance or having all this protection in my life that was no longer there. It was hard I had some friends that I was still in touch with. It was hard to speak to them because my beliefs had changed, and
And
it was just hard to relate to them.
what's happened to those friendships?
They're more like acquaintances now.
Mm-hmm. And what about you,
But
Coleman? Oh,
again, I
sorry.
moved out of the state, so
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that might have happened anyway.
Yeah. Coleman, what about you? Was it a painful process to let go of the beliefs?
It started off as very painful,
Mm-hmm.
especially because it involved the loss of some relationships at the same time. Um, but as it went on, as I was looking at more and more things like, oh, is structured water a thing? Oh, what about UFO? What about alien visitation? Is there any good evidence for that? What about, chemtrails? Is that real? Oh, let me go back and look at the evidence for the 9/11 conspiracy theory. And just for fun, let me also go back and look at this moon landing conspiracy theory because, I keep hearing about it and I had never made up my mind about it. So let me just actually get the details on that. It actually turned into kind of a game of like whack-a-mole of, let's see what other false beliefs I can put to rest. And, it was kind of like playing detective and, going back and, oh, here's a spiritual guru I used to believe was very, very wise leader. Oh, let's see. He was, here he is being accused of fraud. And here he is being caught red-handed using sleight of hand tricks to manifest his apparitions. So that was actually quite satisfying. And that satisfaction I've taken with me into creating this YouTube project that I have now, where
Yeah.
I make a video debunking these things. And Danielle has joined me in some of these videos. We did a video about psychics. We did a video about healing crystals. And we did a video about the fake moon landing together.
So good.
She's popped up in a lot of them.
And can I just say your production values are awesome on your video, on your YouTube.
Oh, well, thanks so
Really,
much.
really, really good. Yeah. I'd just like to go back to Daniela. This notion of purpose I find really, really interesting because I know from my own sort of brief enmeshment in the personal growth industry that this idea that everybody has a purpose and you come into this world to enact your purpose. And it began to not make sense to me when, of course, I realized that a vast portion of the world is simply spending their lives just existing and surviving. And the notion of having sort of some elevated purpose would be completely alien. It just doesn't make sense to me. So in terms of you and feeling purposeful, what about now?
Yeah, I've had a lot of time to muse on that since then, and I was able to make peace with it and still find a purpose outside of the new age beliefs that I held.
And
So
what
it
is your
was just
purpose? What is it now, would you say? Mm.
really, it's just to live my best life, and I'm about to go to graduate school this summer, to become a neuroscience informed social worker.
Oh,
And
I love
so I
you. Oh, that's awesome. Oh,
so
great.
part of my purpose for me now is giving back, because the person who helped me the most was scientifically informed about what was going on in the brain
Yep.
and how that relates to mental health. And so I'd like to become an expert in that same field and help as many people as possible, because
Perfect.
it may help you in more ways than you realize.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And what about you, Common?
Right. Well, I used to derive a sense of purpose from believing in these conspiracy theories, and now I find purpose in debunking them, and I find purpose in shining a light, using scientific evidence and using real research, not the DIY kind of research that conspiracy theorists talk
Yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah. Do your
And
research, right?
and right,
Yeah.
and and being entertaining at the same time. I was a
And you
theater
are.
major in college. I used to be in plays when I was a kid. I love performing, and so
Yeah.
I'm now getting to do that and feel like I'm doing some good in the world, hopefully, at the same
Yep.
time.
Awesome. I wonder if you would be so kind. I know you're both really super busy, but if you would mind coming back quite soon, I would love to talk to you about the Macola and that whole supplement industry, because that's I find that really disturbing, because everyone's always
Yeah,
trying to push supplements onto me, and I'm like, I wouldn't touch them with a hand. So yeah, I know. Do you
yeah,
know Nick
and
Tiller? Do you know Nick Tiller?
I yes, yeah, and
We saw him speak, right?
yeah,
I love Nick
and
Tiller.
and actually, I just saw a video that he just posted about his 25 years
Yeah.
of debunking, and he actually used a clip of the Joe Mercola tapes,
You know,
the secret tapes. In that
awesome.
video, I caught that, and so very briefly, I can
Yeah.
say that Joe Mercola has a secret, which is now out, and the secret was that he is getting his advice from
I know.
a psychic channeler who believes that he is channeling some kind of supernatural entity who is
Yeah.
giving him secret answers that Joe Mercola can then monetize and turn into
Yep.
books and use it to vet his products that he's selling online. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. I just did a video about it. People can watch it. It-
I
just
know.
just
It's
watch it.
nuts. It's
Just see
nuts.
how nuts it gets.
I will put that video, the link to that video about Joe McCullough and that's the guy that he channels. It's just the weirdest, most bizarre, stupid thing I've ever seen in my entire life. But I'll put that in the show notes. I would love to chat to you guys again sometime if you have any time, because for me here in Australia, we are working really, really hard to debunk. And it's hard. We're a small country and we're a small community. So I super appreciate the time you've given me, and all the way from America, and staying up late on a Saturday night, which is you, right? Here I am on a Sunday morning
That's
after our
right. That's
election,
right.
after our election. Yes.
Congratulations on your
Oh
election too.
my goodness. Do you know it was a landslide? It's an
Same in
absolute,
Canada.
I know.
It's sweeping the world.
It's
Yeah.
refreshing to hear.
We were really worried because the Conservative candidate was really Trumpy. He was really waving that Trumpy flag, the Australian people, to our eternal gratitude, all went, "Oh, nah, I don't think so. I don't think so. Nah, I don't reckon."
So satisfying.
So satisfying. Anyway, thank you so much for talking, you two. It has been the most awesome interview.
Oh, Annie, it's so good to talk to you too, and happy to come back anytime.
Oh,
Just let
really?
us know.
Oh, I would adore that. Thank you so much. And stay on while I say goodbye to my lovely listeners who are all over the world. To all the listeners all over the world, I am signing
Thanks for
off
tuning
from
into
here
Why
in
Smart
Sydney,
Women with
Australia,
me, Annie
where
McCubbin.
yesterday we
I
managed
hope
to
today's episode
preserve
has ignited your
democracy.
curiosity
So
and
thank
left you
you.
feeling
Yeah,
inspired
and
by
here.
my
So thank you so much
anti-motivational
for
style.
listening. Have a good day. See
Join
you
me
later.
next time as we continue to unravel the fascinating layers of our brains and develop ways to sort out the fact from the fiction and the over 6,000 thoughts we have in the course of every day. Remember, intelligence isn't enough. You can be as smart as paint, but it's not just about what you know, it's about how you think. And in all this talk of whether or not you can trust your gut, if you ever feel unsafe, whether it's in the street, at work, in a car park, in a bar, or in your own home, please, please respect that gut feeling. Staying safe needs to be our primary objective. We can build better lives, but we have to stay safe to do that. And don't forget to subscribe, rate and review the podcast and share it with your fellow smart women and allies. Together, we're hopefully reshaping the narrative around women and making better decisions. So until next time, stay sharp, stay savvy, and keep your critical thinking hat shiny. This is Annie McCubbin signing off from Why Smart Women. See you later. This episode was produced by Harrison Hess. It was executive produced and written by me, Annie McCubbin.